You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, February 3rd, back at home base here after the Senior Bowl and all that good stuff. But back with some content, as there always is around these parts. And joining me, as always, on a Monday is Weston Smith. Weston, how you doing, man?
Well, it's 7 p.m. on the East Coast in the Smith household, so it's a complete disaster, but we're happy to be here, Steph. You know how it goes.
I do. And, man, I mean, we just got to start off with the latest topic of today. This broke this morning on Monday, and it came from the source himself. Myles Garrett requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, citing the fact that he wants to win. You know, I mean, he obviously has spent his entire career with Cleveland, but it hasn't amounted to much winning during that time. And so this opens up the floodgates for every single fan base in the NFL, except for the Browns, to rally behind, let's go get Myles Garrett, right? And so I think, of course, the 49ers are definitely going to want to be in that conversation. And I think for a variety of reasons, it makes a ton of sense. And as Joe here in the comments says, if we sign Myles, we'll be a force to reckon with on defense. I guarantee it. I love the pun. But Weston, what were your thoughts when you saw this trade request come about? Did your mind, immediately go to the 49ers as well?
It did, and I don't normally say that, right? I don't normally get the happy ears when it comes to an available free agent. I'm usually the one who's like, they're not the fit just because they're a superstar name. But what have we talked about? This team needs to get better at defense. What have we talked about? This team needs to be better against the run. This team needs to get to the quarterback. This team needs to return to its former self, right? Especially on the defensive side of the ball. And he fits that build. And I couldn't help, the man himself, like you said, Steph, he is the source of his own news, saying about how he got into this league to win a Super Bowl, right? Not just to go from Cleveland to Canton, as he put it. There's and he's Canton bound for sure, but there's certain things other milestones along the way. And that just narrows the pack, right? That's not just about pay me. That's just not about those things. And look, I know 2024 was what we hope an abnormality, right, for this franchise. But the truth is they are, I think, with the roster that's in place, with some tweaks here and there, like, this is a team that competes. So why wouldn't they be one that in the state of California, right? This guy's been in Ohio, of all places. Some superstars up and down the defense that for sure he knows by name and engages with. It just felt like I got a little excited, Steph. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think there's still a lot of work to be done here. And Myles is not going to make a decision he's basically just put the world out there like, hey, this is going to go up into the draft, most likely, if not beyond that. But it's like, hey, I'm out there, but I am excited at the possibilities, because I do think this is a team or a destination that Myles himself and his people would at least listen to. In terms of what we can offer them, but it's also what can you offer the Cleveland Browns, because he is still under contract.
That is correct. And so that, yes, as you said, there's a lot of layers to this. It isn't just as simple as, Myles wants a trade, so he's going to get traded. The Cleveland Browns have been adamant that they are not looking for a trade for Myles Garrett. And I mean, you can understand why. He is their best player by a mile. There's always that talk of, people overuse the word generational. When people refer to Myles Garrett as generational, it is not an exaggeration or a stretch at all. I mean, he is a generational player. And so I think it makes sense for the Browns to want to keep him. But at the same time, you kind of do have to say, no, we're not interested, but keep calling, kind of thing. I mean, that's how you drive interest. That's how you get the ridiculous offers. And we've already gotten fans throwing in their thoughts and throwing in their trade proposals for Myles Garrett. I've seen the funny ones that include, Jake Moody, and those are hilarious. But I do think like what East Coast Red and Gold podcast says here, a first and 2 third-round picks for Garrett, who says no. I do think at the very least, 2 firsts is even just the conversation.
That's starting point.
The I don't hang up on you, and I'll keep listening to what you have to say. That's the starter there. And I do think that the 49ers have the ammo to do it. I mean, they've been aggressive in the past. I think a top 11, having the 11th overall pick in this year's draft is good because it's a high-end first-round pick. Of course, you would imagine that next season probably not going to be as high, but that's still something for the Browns to work with and play with. And, I think, the 49ers should be aggressive here. They've done it before. And I've said it several times. Like, I do think that 2025 should be the 49ers all-in season. You got Robert Saleh back. You have no idea if he's going to stay 1 year or 2, but let's just go off the assumption that it's just going to be 1 year. Let's get this going now. Let's fix this team however we need to. They have the draft capital to do it. And when you look at the amount that he's due to get paid, or let's see here. Yeah, so his contract, it would be a $6.3 million cap hit in 2025 and 2026. And because he wants to win, I don't think this is about getting a new contract. Of course, eventually it might come to that, but I don't think that's the priority of this trade or why he's requesting it. I think winning comes first, then we can talk money. I feel like.
So there's a couple things to tackle about this. I agree with the most recent sentiment stuff that you literally just shared in that statement about 2025 presenting maybe the best opportunity for this team. I tweeted about it earlier today. Nobody cares, right, when I tweet, but I did tweet about it where I just basically said, let's recall the last time, which we have now passed the officially the 30-year threshold since the San Francisco 49ers have last won a Super Bowl. They went and built a star-studded team specifically to get past the Dallas Cowboys, right, who they just lost to in 2 consecutive NFC championships. Ken Norton Jr., Deion Sanders, who was the best defensive player in the world at that time. That's what Myles Garrett is. Like, he is the best. I don't argue with your mother with a wall. I don't care. He is the best defensive player in football. Period. Point blank. Like, end of sentence. No debate here. He is a disruptor in all elements of the game. He is a game changer. And if you are serious with those numbers that I'm looking at in front of, that's paper money, right? And he's not gonna, based on the sentiment from his statement, he's not gonna ask you for more. So this is not about breaking the bank to pay Myles Garrett along with the other superstars. It's about, are you willing to possibly sacrifice future stability on the roster for an all-in chance? And my short answer here is absolutely yes. Like, I don't think there is a name or an amount of draft picks that would make me turn my back and say, not for this guy. He's that good. He's that much of a difference maker. I think if this is serious and he's putting it out there, the 49ers need to be doing every ounce of due diligence and not being cute about it. If it's something that you're seriously entertaining in the building, look, you gave up 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, who's not even on your roster anymore, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. Let's not get cute with this. Don't overthink it. If you choose that this is something you want to explore, do not explore it half-ass. And don't be late to the game here. You know what I mean? Like, there is, all things considered, potentially the difference between you and winning a Super Bowl is staring you right in the face. What are you willing to give up for it?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And, I get it. Myles Garrett is 29 years old, all right? So there are some questions there potentially. Like Tommy here in the comments says, hell no, 2 firsts for a 29-year-old. And I appreciated that Schefter did post this earlier, right? This very comparable trade of, top edge rusher Khalil Mack some years ago when he was 27 years old, when he was traded from the Raiders to the Bears. The Bears gave up 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. In return, they got Khalil Mack, a 2nd-round pick, and a conditional 5th-round pick. And so if age comes in to factor here for any team, making a trade for Myles Garrett, which, honestly, I think Myles Garrett is better than Khalil Mack was even then. I think I could live with that. Like this is a pretty good parameter that I'd be happy if the 49ers did give up that for someone like Myles Garrett. And I'll tell you why, because look, at pick 11, people get really enamored with what a draft pick could be. I talk to Jay about this all the time. We'll probably mention it on Bully Ball tomorrow, actually, that pick 11, any draft pick is just a shot in the dark.
It's 50-50.
But because you don't know what it is, everyone's mind goes to this could be the next, great player. Well, you have a great player in Myles Garrett in front of you, proven track record. You already know what he is. He's been in the NFL. He's been dominant. Like you said, future Hall of Famer. We know what he is. That's something you bet on. You can't really bet on what a draft pick is going to end up being. So that's a little harder, right? Let me tell you this. Is Myles Garrett better than 2 first-round picks that you can get?
Yes.
Like easiest freaking answer in the world. Yes.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here? Even thinking that 2 first is not is too much for Garrett.
I think most everybody, again, he's talking about going to win. It's got to be about most of the teams that are in contention. They're not even drafting at 11 right now. So there's a little sex appeal to 11 versus maybe some of the others in the immediate replacement perspective. But the reality is, if you're the San Francisco 49ers looking at it like this, all right, so what you have on your screen is the Mack trade. You had me at 2 first-round picks, a 3rd, and a 6th for Mack. I'd stop and say, I'd do all that for Garrett. I don't need the 2nd round in return. I don't need the 5th round in return. I'll certainly take them, right? If you're willing to gift back something in return outside the player. But to your point, Steph, like, look, you get him, he immediately has more impact than any first-round pick that you're making for the next 2 years combined. Maybe even 3 years combined. Easily. Like you said, do we trust the organization to hit a home run over the next 3 first-round picks? Or do you take the commodity that And here's the one thing that I think I really appreciate about Myles Garrett in this particular instance, and I think whoever is willing to give it up, they're going to get this in their locker room. I just want it in our locker room, is a guy who's coming out and saying, like, this isn't about the bag. This is about the ring, and a veteran who's been in a no-win environment, who's seen turmoil out the wazoo. Like, to me, this guy's coming into the locker room all business. Like, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. This is what I want to do. I chose this team because, yes, maybe the Cleveland assisted in choosing this team because they were willing to accept, but like, my people think this is the best spot for me. Like, there's a lot to be said for that, for a veteran leader who is, like we said, Canton bound, who's going to come into your locker room and not just strutting around about the money that he just secured, right? It's going to be business from the get-go. It's going to be business right out of the gate.
Look, this is an interesting one from Todd.
Here we go.
Right? He's
always stirring the pot.
Yeah, he is. That's why we love him here in the chat. He said the Browns said they want a QB who is pretty good. We still all in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Purdy, but if the Browns want Brock Purdy in that trade, and let's just say it's a player for player swap, or I don't know, there'll probably be some other fillers in there to make it feel even for both sides. But yes, I'm sorry. I would just that's how impactful Garrett is, I think.
If I said Myles Garrett's the best defensive player in the planet, you would at least consider that statement to be factual. Pretty close, yeah?
Yeah.
Top 2, 3. we're not saying the same thing about Brock Purdy on the offensive side of the ball. And that's not a slate against Brock Purdy.
Right.
Like I love Brock. Yes.
We love Brock here.
Yes. We are pro Brock. Well, my wife would be like, you're such a liar. No, you're not. I wasn't in the beginning. I have been.
Your dog is literally named
Purdy.
So
guess what?
Yeah.
Miles Garrett comes to the team. I might get a new dog and we might name it Miles. You know what I mean? That's how we roll in this family. Flavor of the month. But no, this is like serious talk. Like, I know this is so much fun because we can play with our imagination, but the reality is, and I don't like Steph, I stress this. I'm not the believer of just go get that guy because he's a name. This is a guy that will literally change the face of this team and change your prospects in the NFC. Like,
generational. And we're not just throwing that word around.
When you brought Deion Sanders over in 94, he missed the first 3 games of the season and still won Defensive Player of the Year. He's still the most impactful team on that. That is the equivalent at arguably the most important position on the defensive side of the ball, your edge rusher. Steph, I'm going so far as like, listen, I'd love to just get this done with draft picks, right? You can have all 11 that we make this season. I'm not even I would give you all 11 that we make this season for Myles Garrett. But if it had to be players and that player had to be Nick Bosa, like we all love Nick, but I would still say yes. Like I would still say yes to this.
That one's a little tougher, but yeah. And I only say it's tough because
we love the guy and he is a good player and he's productive, but this dude is the best.
Yes, but because I would want to see Myles Garrett with Bosa. In my mind, that's God. That should be the entire goal.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. You want our 11 draft picks this year? They're yours. All 11. You can retool your entire Cleveland Brown team right now.
All right, we got breaking news just as we're live here. Cooper Kupp. No, it has nothing to do with Myles Garrett, but it does have to do with the trade. Cooper Kupp did say that he has been informed by the LA Rams that the team will be seeking a trade immediately for Cooper Kupp. And of course, long spiel here. He loves LA, all that. And, of course. His career's been there. Before, and sorry.
But not traded. Clarify, not traded.
Has not been traded yet, but the Rams will be seeking a trade. And I can't imagine that they'll have a hard time finding a partner. Although I'll say it before you guys say it. He's not going to the Niners. There's just no way that
neither is T. Higgins. So let's stop that immediately too. Cooper Kupp's a guy that I think a lot of teams are going to have interest in him for sure. I think he is declining in some capacity. That's to be expected in the National Football League. I see a very Adam Thielen-esque trajectory to his career, like just at the top and then just a slow decline. But that could just be indicative of him being in LA and Puka Nacua just being the guy right now. And you can't ignore that. He's like the offense moves through Puka where it used to move through Cooper, and now it doesn't. So there'll be some suitors. I just would love to see Cooper Kupp out of the NFC West. That's my ask. Simple stuff out of the way. And don't go to the Chiefs.
You probably go somewhere to
you know what I mean?
Yes, I agree. Wouldn't want him to go to the Chiefs. I could see him with the Chargers or even the Patriots, like 2 QB needy teams. Wide receiver needy teams who have like a quarterback that you need to surround with talent. I think that would be an easy one. But yeah, again, just wanted to share that here because I just saw that break literally right now. And again, Cooper Kupp won't be in the NFC West much longer, so yay, but also won't be a Niner. So
until he goes to Seattle.
Yeah, he better not. I mean,
I hate myself.
But going back to the Myles Garrett conversation, right? So Tim K, who does his 49ers Plus Minus podcast, he did float the idea of the 49ers making a huge trade for an elite pass rusher or two. And he said it was because someone told me an elite pass rusher or two might become available on the market and the 49ers might try to get into the talks. At that time, it seems like, Tim K did not know that Myles Garrett would then request a trade. And so this makes a lot of sense, though. The fact that the 49ers would be in the market, that, Tim K's hearing whisperings that the 49ers would be interested in, adding an elite pass rusher to this defense. I think we know that's something they've been missing. And I think it just furthers it furthers my wanting of Myles Garrett and how much it makes sense, just because like they were already planning to go all in for someone, for an elite pass rusher. Why not go for the best,
the guy,
the one? And so, I mean, it make a lot of sense.
Steph, you were just at the Senior Bowl, right? A lot of buzz around the defensive line play down in Mobile. Wouldn't you agree? D tackles, edge rushers, a lot of buzz. And while I'm sure you think very highly of some of those individuals' potential, do you think any of them are going to reach the levels of Myles Garrett in their career?
I can't say that for certain. See, that's the thing, right? Like maybe, but no, there is no generational. Myles Garrett, even coming out of college, was seen as generational, and he's lived up to that.
The guy who, I'm going to use like a high school football term here, because this was like what we always used to say, is this guy won you the game just walking off the bus, right? You just looked at him and he's just bigger, a more physical specimen than everybody else. That's why his age doesn't even concern me, right? Because this guy will have productivity beyond that, because he is that physical specimen in strength, in speed. Like even as he deteriorates, he's still head and shoulders above his competition for the most part. But my point was to say that like you saw a lot of good youthful talent that the 49ers are probably eyeing with 11, along with a lot of other teams who are going to be in this Myles Garrett mix. But I am almost confident to go out and say none of them are going to reach the production levels of Myles Garrett in their career. Like the known versus the unknown, where your team is where they are, you go, I'm putting all my eggs in the known versus the unknown if I'm given that option.
Now, here's another comment that I think is a great, discussion starter for us. Benali says, but the knock against the 49ers is that they're too old and have no depth. Is throwing away multiple draft picks something they can't afford?
Fair.
This is a fair question.
Very fair.
Very fair question, because we literally did see the Trey Lance trade and the impacts of that they're still feeling to this day. I mean, it derailed, I don't think we see 2024 and it be as bad as it was had they kept those picks, and you could have continued to build this team with youth and all that. It really hindered their ability to do that. I think it's fair to question, if that's worth doing again. Now, again, I think it goes back to the conversation of this is a known commodity and one of the best in the NFL. So that's the difference. Trey Lance was an unknown, and that was obviously a big risk, a big projection. All right. You don't have to worry about that part of it with Myles Garrett. And I'll also add that you're going all in. I mean, and if that's just for 1 year, 2 years, who cares what happens after that if you win the Super Bowl? But the caveat to that is you have to win the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Because if you do not, then yes, you are screwed, and you are going to find yourself in this situation again, and things probably won't be as kind to you if that were to happen. But this, I mean, in my mind, Bosa, Garrett, Robert Saleh, like there's a lot aligning that makes this feel like it could be an all-in year for the 49ers. And if you have Garrett, they would be Super Bowl favorites. Could they finish the job? That's the question.
They would be favorites immediately, especially if they didn't have to give up said players, right? And this is all about pick collateral. I would say, honestly, at the end of the day, this is probably a 3-for-1, right? 3 future players in terms of picks that you're giving up, even if it's 3 first-rounders for Myles Garrett. If it's me, I take that bet, because I just look at this regime's history. They haven't really been that successful drafting in the first round, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. It just hasn't panned out. And not excusable, because to your point, whether it was the foregone picks that went in the Trey Lance trade, or even the first round picks that were made early by this regime, had they still be here and being able to contribute, maybe 2024, maybe, some other years look different, but I just still, I don't know. I value when we talk about depth, and I've always talked about this. I value the quantity of third, fourth, fifth, sixth round picks that you have. That's where I think your depth in the NFL comes from. Honestly, in the first or second round, these guys either stick around or they don't, right? Like there's no in between. Yeah. It is as hit or miss as you can possibly get. There are only few factors that make Myles Garrett a miss if you trade for him, right? And I won't speak those into the atmosphere for any team who's going to give up what it's going to take to acquire him. But like, Steph, I've rarely ever said this about the team that I follow. You have to be in on this. Like, there's no way. Like, if you're sitting in the office looking at each other like, nah, that's not a good idea, and you're John Lynch and you're Kyle Shanahan, you're Parag and all those people, you don't belong running this franchise. Get out. Like, get out, and don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, as they said. Like, malpractice. Like, you gotta really, really explore this, and you gotta take it as far as you can.
Yo, appreciate everyone in the live chat because it is absolutely popping right now. I just saw where I'm at in the scroll, and I'm like 10 minutes behind almost. But people did challenge what we said about Brock, about being willing to trade Brock. And I like it. I like that you guys are challenging us, because what do I say all the time when it comes to anyone trying to not sign or extend Brock? I'm like, what is your backup plan? Like, what is your plan? So Benali then said, who do we sign to play quarterback then in that situation? Does Sam Darnold come home? Well, I think, like that suddenly would be an option. Although I do think Sam Darnold would be out of the 49ers price range, at least for this season, but maybe they can work something out where it would be maybe closer to a Baker Mayfield type deal that I think the 49ers would maybe be more willing to go with. Ski says, well, if you trade Purdy for Garrett, I would do it and sign Joe Flacco. Yeah. Sure, sign Flacco, but I don't know if I want Flacco to be the starting quarterback. I think we could do better, but somewhere between Sam Darnold and Flacco. See, that's the thing. That's a complicated thing. This quarterback draft class is atrocious. Probably one of the reasons that the Browns would even be willing to trade Garrett is because there's no way you're going to get a quarterback who's going to save you from this rut that you're in this year's draft. And the best way to get that quarterback in the future would be to collect as many draft picks as you can. And that would be via this trade. Now, but it's a double-edged sword for the 49ers or another team that would be willing to potentially trade a quarterback for Myles Garrett, is that there would really not be a desirable alternative available out there. And so then the Browns' current problem kind of becomes the 49ers in a sense. But we have seen Kyle Shanahan do wonders with bare minimum quarterbacks. I would
bring
say
Nick Mullins back.
Justin Fields. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. There would be some options, but of course, the defense would then become the
focal point.
Yeah, it'd be your super team. And
it'd be what the 2011, 12, and 13 49ers were. That team was all about, yes, I know Colin Kaepernick was there, but it was all about, that team went as the defense went, period, point blank. He was lightning in a bottle, etc. It's about the defense. That, to me, I'm old school. I'm the boomer. Defense wins championships.
Benali, do not speak this into existence. She said Rams are going to try to trade Kupp to the Browns. No. Browns need a quarterback first. Yeah.
But the Browns are so poverty-stricken, they'd probably think this was a good idea. We need another receiver. You don't. And Myles is right to want out. There's just so much negativity surrounding that franchise right now, and it's just another one. They just can't get out of their own way. This happens, right? It's about ownership. It's about other things. And I know they're a legacy franchise, but It's not good for Cleveland fans.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a lot more conversations that will be had on both Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp. I see you guys talking about Kupp here as well, but that, of course, was 10 minutes ago when we we were talking about. I'm so behind. But like I said, I appreciate all of you. Make sure you like this video if you have not yet. But hey, this is fun. The fact that Lenore has been doing some recruiting. We know that he's very outspoken on the field. He loves to talk trash online, but hey, when it comes to recruiting, he can do that too. In fact, when was it? It was with Max Crosby like some weeks ago as well, right? Where he posted telling him he'd look good in red and gold. Well, yeah, now he's doing a full court press on Myles Garrett, not just on Twitter, but on Instagram as well. So on Twitter, he said, what type of animal you want to be? We got hyenas, bears, lions, and gorillas. And he tagged Myles Garrett on Twitter. And then on Instagram, responding to on his story, he said, let's get a ring, and tagged him again. So
hell yeah.
I appreciate this level of recruitment, man, because I mean, Lenore is one of them ones, and we need more guys like him.
Yeah. It's fine. I had tweeted, and again, nobody cares, but I had tweeted out that, is there a world where we can slide Demo's salary over to the front office side of the house at this point? Because he's out there doing the work of your general manager and your recruiting staff and your scouts, bringing this guy over. I had totally even blown by the Demo and Max Crosby thing. Here's another guy that, like, sign me up if this guy wants to find a way to I think there's a common theme here. Big time difference maker in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. And that's going to spurn us into our next topic, Steph, as we go. But like, I think it's obvious. The 49ers need to, and I'm hoping want to, make a splash in that world. And, there's two guys right there that you got Demo out there just doing the Lord's work, trying to get these guys to the Bay. Can't blame them.
All right, finally caught up to the live chat. Sorry, I did have to scroll through and skip some things, but appreciate you, like I said. And it was funny because the topic of today's show, even before this Myles Garrett stuff came out, was the Robert Saleh effect, right? And I say that because I do think that the return of Robert Saleh, obviously really good, highly respected defensive coordinator in mind, I think would go a long way to helping the 49ers out this offseason, not just in the draft, but I think in free agency as well. Like, we've already been speaking about some of those low-hanging fruit options, right? Like, he can bring in some guys from the Jets, like maybe Kinlaw on a vet minimum. And I know people scoff at that, but it's like, guys, it's vet minimum. Like, he would be depth. I mean, why would you not be cool with that? And there's also other Jets free agents that I think would make a lot of sense. You could bring in DJ Reed, maybe. I've even heard Carlton Davis, who has a connection with Saleh as well. But I think the one in-house option that could potentially hit free agency, as we know, is Dre Greenlaw. Right. Yep. And I hadn't thought about it before, at least like immediately when the hiring of Saleh was made. But this past week, I've seen a lot about, players talking about Greenlaw potentially coming back and all that. And like Fred Warner, for example, at the Pro Bowl, talking to Jennifer Lee Chan, said, since the day it ended, talking about the season, since the day it all ended, that's been my goal, to recruit, to bring him back. And then Bosa said, obviously we want him back. And I know Saleh is very adamant about that. Saleh's got a couple guys that he's worked with too, like DJ Reed. Maybe he could bring him back as well. And so even the players are like seeing like, hey, suddenly we could get some dudes here, some dudes back as well. And I think the biggest one, at least to focus on now before he hits free agency, should be Dre Greenlaw. And if Saleh's adamant about it, I feel so much better about that being a possibility.
Yeah, I agree. And this is not uncommon. Coordinator, coach changes, whatever it is. There's going to be, ghosts of past and future that are going to find their way back to the squad. And you mentioned all the not obvious names who have had multiple stints with Robert Saleh, right? Like the Kinlaws, the Solomon Thomases. They did it in SF. They've done it in New York, right? So like they've exposure to him. We all know, Dre was playing his best ball under Saleh. Warner rose to stardom under Saleh. What's the common theme here? Warner, Greenlaw, Saleh, they're all big emotion, fiery guys. Like I'm sure there's a lot of camaraderie there, and a lot of love and a lot of respect for each other's games. And Greenlaw finds himself in that territory of like, probably going to have to find himself on a prove-it deal, no matter where it is, just coming off of that Achilles and not really being able to get much on the field this year. Some people might offer him more money. Some might offer him the multiple year. But I think what tips the scales back towards the 49ers is, hey, their familiarity with them. And, oh, by the way, we're bringing your defensive coordinator back, right? Like, I think that helps. And I think there's going to be a huge Saleh effect in the sense of players galvanizing around him, new but old faces that we'll see come back to this team, like combinations of all of this. What I'm uncertain about is, does that result in better performance on the field? That I don't know yet, but I like to think that they're going to play more inspired football because they have a more inspired coach. I think those say this all the time. There are very few sports where coaching matters. This is the sport where coaching matters more than any professional sport in the world. And I think players play for coaches, right? They lie down for coaches. They run through walls for coaches. And Saleh's just one of those guys. And, there's still Bosa here. There's still Warner here. Hopefully that keeps Dre here. I think there's a big ripple wave that comes from bringing Saleh back. That's not just about the coordinator. It's about what doors now open for outside players, keep current players, and what does that look like, keeping them? Like, does Dre take a little bit of a discount? I don't know. I'm not putting words into his mouth. Is he willing to take a little bit of discount because he doesn't have to move and he's got his guy? Don't know.
I think suddenly for Dre, yeah, like it makes 49ers an enticing option again. Like, because I think I don't want to say he was dead set on hitting free agency, but I think he fully expected to test the market and see what other teams would offer.
Yeah.
Now I think there's a chance that, and I don't want to call it a hometown discount, right? Like kind of like what you're saying. I don't want to like say that. I just think that there's a chance you can work something out with him now so that he doesn't hit free agency and he's not so adamant to see what his market is, right?
Agree.
And especially because you can incentivize it in a way where it's, hey, it's a 1-year deal. This is a system that you're familiar with a coach who and coaches it well. 1-year deal to put yourself out there again and rebuild your market. And so in a year, you will get a top linebacker contract or whatnot. Whatever it is, I think the 49ers could make that their selling point to Greenlaw. And with Robert Saleh, it makes it way easier to sell that to him. So, yeah, hopefully they can get that done. And, yeah, I hope that Robert Saleh is adamant to bring him back. Here's the other thing, too. I know that Saleh was looking for, other roles, particularly head coaching roles.
Yep.
I don't think he was considering any other roles. Like he wasn't considering being a DC anywhere else. It was 49ers or a head coach position. That was it. And so I think in a sense, like you want to keep Saleh happy as well. Like, you put all the eggs in the Saleh basket and it worked out. Now keep him happy. Now give him what I imagine he was probably telling the 49ers he was going to need in order to make this work, because we knew the personnel from this past season was not good at all. It was not good. I mean, you got a few guys who are your foundational pieces, but around that, there really wasn't much to work with for, I think most DCs would have trouble working with that. And so Saleh probably looked at the roster and was like, like, if you're going to have me on board, this is what we have to do.
For sure.
And I think the 49ers would be like, yes, absolutely. And so right now, and I said it last week, right? It's February. I said it last week of January. I think pick 11, assuming the 49ers keep that and don't go all in on Myles Garrett, right? Yep. I think right now that pick is going towards defense. And I think it has to. I think there's going to be such a big focus in free agency and the draft on defense and building the line back out, building that depth again. Look, we already know that the strong point of this team is the secondary right now, or like the strong point of the defense is the secondary. But you still need to fill in some gaps there as well. So yeah, I think Saleh is gonna have a large say on what the 49ers do, both in the draft and free agency. And that excites me because I think, again, he knows what he needs in order to make this work. And it's good. It's good that the 49ers, I think, are going to be willing to, give him the liberty of pretty much handpicking his guys.
Yeah. It's funny stuff because, and I've said that I'm not a big fan of retreads, right? Like it's not my thing. Big fan of Robert Saleh, just the individual and the memories that he's provided us and et cetera. But I've been trying to talk myself into loving this more and more and more. And I think it's the uniqueness of the situation for Saleh. And you just hit the nail on the head about like, this was the only DC role he considered, right? Like he was looking at head coaching opportunities and maybe they weren't as interested in him as maybe he was in their, whatever, we don't know. But the truth is like, Saleh is no longer a guy who's positioning his entire career to become a head coach. He's already done that, right? That's already on the resume. Yeah. So you can, and when I say that, because you can be a little more like, think of the elections in this country, right? Like the guy who just won, he was already there, right? He can be more brazen. Saleh can be more brazen coming over here and have more demands and have all of that because it's not, I don't want to step on anybody's toes because I'm trying to get that shot. You know what I mean? Like he already had the shot. So I agree with you. I think 11 is defense all the way. 95% of the way. I think a couple things. The Saleh effect. B, I think there's stronger defensive line talent at the top of this draft than there is offensive line talent. Yeah. So you might find yourself in that position. And it feels like that's where the 49ers are really looking, right? If they make if they make their own selection at 11 overall, it's going to be in the trenches. And I think Saleh being here shades it towards this is going to be defense. But I'm not going to be surprised if 6 out of the 10 or 11 picks that they make, 7 out of 11 picks that they make are going to be for the defensive side of the ball. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I think Kyle feels like he's already has 3 draft picks used on the offense that are coming back this year, and Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and maybe Trent Williams, right? Like it's he feels stable there, some improvement necessary in the offensive line. I think we'll get to that free agency. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to be as heavily invested in the draft because they never do seemingly but I do agree. I think it's defense. That's what's going to get this team back right.
Yeah, I agree. And, Saleh, as well as building the personnel out, speaking of players, he's also building his personnel as far as the coaches go, which I think for the most part, he'll probably keep most of the staff together. But he did interview former corner D'Angelo Hall for the DB's coach position. Currently, D'Angelo Hall is the assistant DB's coach for the Carolina Panthers. He's had that same role since 2023. And so that's an interesting one. He played several years in the NFL. And I always tell people this, like, because when that news came out, I saw a bunch of people were like, wasn't D'Angelo Hall the one that got embarrassed on that one play? And it's like, yes, but like that, like,
yes, he is.
Yes, but that does not reflect who a player can be as a coach. So don't dismiss the idea of D'Angelo Hall as a coach. And I'll also say this, because I think it was Matt Barrows who, after that came out, he did say, like, this doesn't necessarily mean that the 49ers are going to be replacing Daniel Bullock, who is the current 49ers DB coach. Maybe they could find a different role for him, but let's not make any assumptions. Let's just kind of see where the chips fall in this whole scenario. But yeah, we'll roll with the punches and assume that there will be some changes, at least to the defensive side, both from the coaching standpoint, and as we already mentioned, of course, from the player standpoint as well. Now, you mentioned offensive line. I don't want to get too deep into free agency because, we have a lot of time to talk about that. But since we do think that pick 11 is probably going to be leaning towards defense this year, that kind of leaves offensive line as secondary once again, which I think we're used to that. I just think 49er fans, for the most part, get upset when offensive line isn't the very first thing on the 49ers list. But here's what I'll say. I still think that the 49ers can rebuild their defense through the draft. And like, Weston said, 6-7 out of the 10 picks could end up being defense, and they can still come away with a better offense at the end of it. Yep. Who are the biggest issues for the 49ers offensive line this year?
Center.
And Aaron Banks.
Yeah, left guard. Yep.
Aaron Banks is out the door. I mean, he's going to be a free agent. 49ers are not going to bring him back. Matt Maiocco has already pretty much echoed that sentiment or that prediction that 49ers not bringing him back. And so that leaves some holes at left guard and, potentially at center. Now, a lot of 49er fans have been mentioning this already. Drew Dalman of the Atlanta Falcons, who is set to be a free agent. He's a center. That would be, I think, a hell of an upgrade from Jake Brendel. So the 49ers can address that in free agency. And I think they will, because they never look towards a rookie center. So stop putting that on your mock drafts. And they've never successfully developed someone into being their starting center. I'll just say that. It's usually like a free agent guy that already has the existing experience that they know can do what the 49ers ask their center to do, because it is a lot. And so I think Drew Dalman makes a lot of sense. There's some connections there with Kyle Shanahan already. I'll have to look the tweet back up, but I know David Lombardi has pointed it out before because he's written about it. But that could be, I think, a surefire option for the 49ers to address center. And then the I think it was also Matt Maiocco said that the 49ers will look to have in-house options compete for left guard, which, they have them. I think he said Ben Barch and who was the other guy? Nick Zakelj. So those guys could be in-house options, and I wouldn't even stop there. Like, why not? They'll probably bring another guy in as well to potentially compete. Someone that they draft maybe later in the draft, UDFA, all that stuff. But I'm not too worried about the offensive line. I think that will work itself out. And it doesn't have to be a pick 11.
Doesn't have to be a pick 11. I do think there has to be some free agent added, even if it's at guard and it's not at center or whatever it is, right? I do think, and yes, Dahlman's the sexy one with his father obviously having roots to the San Francisco 49ers. And the San Francisco 49ers as a franchise have had success with this. And those runs that they made in the Harbaugh era, it was Goodwin that they brought over to play center, who was a free agent, vet in this league that they brought over. And then, 2019 and the latter years, it was Weston Richburg, who they brought over, who was a league vet using this league. And so Dalman feels like the right play, but I feel like either one of those, to make me feel more comfortable, if it's not a priority in the draft, is like I need to see one of those be with a free agent that still has a little bit of tread left on the tires, right? Not a 36, 37, 38-year-old. I think we are so hell-bent on applying the first-round pick 11 this year to the offensive line because we want it to be the replacement left tackle of this team who's been spoiled by left tackle play since God knows when we can last remember, right? Like from Joe Staley's rookie year all the way through Trent Williams, it's been nothing but a pillar, at left tackle, and the backup plan's not there, right? The backstop is not there right now. And that's unless the plan is go get Myles Garrett, win a Super Bowl, and who the hell cares what happens to the next 10 years, right? Like, you're not worried about it. Yeah, or the plan is like, hey, there's going to be another left tackle that's going to come out onto the market. Like, they stole Trent Williams, right? That was like an abnormal situation. They literally, that's highway robbery, what they gave up to get him. They might have to go play the big money left tackle market. That doesn't tend to pan out. So I think that's where I don't want 11 overall used on a center. I don't care how good he is, or a tackle who played tackle in college, but is transitioning to a guard in the NFL. Like, spare me, find me the replacement, find me the future, or build and continue to build the defensive line.
And hey, maybe you get lucky and you get into a Pooney situation where you get him on day 2 and he ends up being a starter, right? Yep. That's in the realm of possibility. I do think the 49ers will get an offensive lineman in the draft. It just won't be as early as 49er fans will like. But like I said, there's still plenty of room for this offensive line to improve this offseason with just one player leaving and another, that being center, getting replaced. So yeah, that's kind of my early projection, I guess, for the 49ers free agency and at a high level. And, we'll see what happens with this Myles Garrett thing. But of course, that was a lot of fun to discuss, and appreciate everyone in the chat that, also had a lot of fun throwing out some ideas.
All of that to find out he'll be a Los Angeles Ram in 2 weeks.
Stop it.
Just
stop it.
I know. And I've been biting my tongue the entire time.
Because people were saying that in the chat, and I'm not entertaining it. I'm not manifesting that. I'm not even, I can't say the words, We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
This is an optimistic bunch for at least this portion of 2025 go forward, let's just say.
That defensive line would be
absurd.
Absolutely insane. Well, because, like Matthew Stafford, not to go down that rabbit hole, but Matthew Stafford, has already said like he will return in 2025.
Yep.
So maybe they're gonna go for an all-in season. Like
they did it once.
I don't know.
Von Miller,
they did it once.
Odell Beckham, they did it.
I can't see it again. I don't want to see it again. With Jared Verse is a dog. Like
Byron Young, Savage. I mean, that defensive line would be scary because you can find ways to have all three of them on the field at the same time, and that'd be ridiculous. Ridiculous.
We're not speaking into existence, people. And on that note, I'm also not talking about the Super Bowl. I don't plan to watch the Super Bowl. I was dead serious.
No, you're protesting it?
I'm dead serious. It's not that I'm protesting it. It's just that I have literally
it doesn't interest you.
It doesn't interest me. It's going to be the same game we've watched a million times, especially 49er fans. We know how that goes. I
had a spiel all prepared for this.
What was your spiel?
Well, I'm rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, fuck.
No, I know. But hear me out. There's logic behind everything.
I don't want to.
you guys don't know where I'm from, but I'm from New Jersey, right? So I'm basically the neighbor for the Philadelphia Eagles. There's nobody worse than a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So I hate them more than most San Francisco 49ers would care. It's not about the rivalry between our teams because I don't even think one exists. I just hate the city, hate the people, hate the fans. And yes, that includes some of my own family. But I look at it like this from a lot. The Kansas City Chiefs could potentially be the first team to ever in the history of the National Football League to three-peat, right? So let's say they do. That increases the likelihood that they will not be the first team to ever four-peat, right? Like it just makes it a little bit harder to get back to that. And my inside tells me, well, why do I care if the Chiefs win this one right now? Because my team's not involved, right? Like my team's not involved. I'd rather them have some weird juju from the NFL face them next year when my team, at least, at the start of the season, we have a chance to go back there, right? It hasn't been done. But no, I get it. We all hate the Chiefs. We have a definitive rivalry with them based on these Super Bowls. But the hatred for the Philadelphia Eagles is so deep in where I'm from. It's absurd. But that's my logic. I'm sticking to it. I'm really rooting for the stadium to implode with no injuries. Just not able to play the game. But if I, push comes to shove, and then I'm rooting for wherever boxes I have in every Super Bowl box pool that I'm in. Probably like 30 boxes out there.
Lunacy says I'm rooting for the Meteor. So yeah, that's basically it's a lose-lose situation for us. So I guess it's whatever. One of them is going to win, and it's going to suck no matter who it is. But yeah, so I guess that's part of the reason I don't want to watch it. I don't think it'll be that entertaining of a Super Bowl either. I think it'll be defensive heavy, maybe a little scoring. We'll see. That's my prediction. I am bummed that I won't see Kendrick Lamar's performance live. That's okay. I'll catch it after,
It'll be all over Twitter
I'm excited
right as it's happening.
That is my Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance.
I could care less about the halftime.
Okay. Well, Drake fan? You Drake fan over here?
No. I think the last halftime show that moved me was the Super Bowl in LA that we were supposed to be in when it was Snoop and Dre and
that one was dope.
That's throwback to my youth.
Yeah, you guys don't remember when Weston had the Tupac, was it life size or was it just the poster? There it is. Yeah.
Still here. It's just not in the background
not life size,
anymore.
But yeah, still there. I think we should move it to the background just for the vibes.
I think so too.
All right.
Some changes here.
Yeah. But it was great to, like I said, to be back at home base after the Senior Bowl. Had a blast out there. And, just to be back here talking with Weston, to be back with all of you in the live chat. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. And one more thing for the YouTube viewers. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I go live. It's way more sporadic in the off season. So, just YouTube will notify you when I go live. So that takes the work out of it. But that is all. Have a good rest of your Monday, folks. But for now, peace.